Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. Of late, we have been seeing various reports about the falling value of rupee, how the foreign portfolio investors are moving out of the Indian market, the increase in inflation, the impact of crude oil prices on the rupee, and the imported. How is the rupee depreciating and why is it depreciating? What is the mechanism behind this operation? And what are the reasons for depreciation? And what would be the likely impact on the global economy in the future? What are the central banks in Indian context, the RBI, doing about this? All this we'll look in today's article. How is the value of rupee depreciated? In exchange rate, the value of any currency will be relative with the respect of another currency. And here it is based on the mechanism of demand and supply. So what happens? If the supply of rupee increases with respect to the supply of dollar, the value of rupee falls because as compared to the dollars, there is more number of rupees available in the market. So we know the basics of demand and supply. If demand increases, price increases. If supply increases, the price decreases. Here, because the supply is increasing, the value of rupee is falling. Again, if the demand for rupee increases, just like if the demand increases, the price increases. If the demand for rupee increases as compared to the dollar, the value of rupee increases. That is, the value of rupee appreciates as compared to the dollar. So what is the example of increase in supply and depreciating in value of rupee? When we are importing more crude oil, we would have to make the payment in US dollars. So at that time, we would be converting more number of rupees into US dollars. So the supply of rupee in the market increases and the demand for US dollar increases. Because the supply of rupee is increasing and the demand for US dollar is increasing, the value of Indian rupee reduces. This is the Indian rupee depreciates. At the same time, if more number of foreign portfolio investors want to invest in India, they would want to convert their US dollars into Indian rupees. At that time, the demand for Indian rupees will increase, so the value of Indian rupee as against the dollar would appreciate. Now, in this context, when the value of rupee is continuously falling, what is the RBI doing about it? RBI, the central bank, has various reserves. Among them, the foreign currency reserves also make up a huge component. Now, because the supply of rupees is and the demand for dollars is huge in the economy, in order to contain the heavy flow, in order to contain the heavy downfall of rupee and to control the volatility, the market, the RBI would increase the supply of dollars in the market. So the RBI would sell the dollars which it has and increase the supply of the dollars so that the demand supply mismatch will slightly reduce and the fall in the value of rupee would be partially contained. And what are the reasons for the continuous fall in the value of rupee? Why is rupee depreciating tremendously? One of the main reasons is the global uncertainty, that is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Various reports say that because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the increase in the commodity prices, the overall value of the emerging economy markets, they are continuously falling. So the Russia-Ukraine conflict make up one of the reasons, and the other reason being the increase in the interest rate by the US Federal Bank. Now, because the Federal Bank is increasing the interest rate as compared to the Indian market, for a foreign portfolio investor, if he is getting more interest rates in the USA, he would want to take away the money from the Indian market to the US market. So because the foreign portfolio investors are moving out of the Indian market, because they are finding the lucrative investment opportunities in the US market, the value of rupee is again falling. We just discussed about the demand supply mechanism. And it is said that of the exit, there is almost 3,700 crore of foreign portfolio investors exit from the Indian market in the current fiscal year, and this is said to be highest in the last 10 fiscal years. And because the interest rates are rising in the yields of the bonds are increasing. Yield is the amount of return that you get from your investment. What are you yielding from your investment? So for an investor point of view, If you are getting more yield in some other market, why would you want to still invest in the Indian market? Obviously, you would take out your money and go to that foreign market. That is exactly what is happening now. The investors, the FPIs and FIIs, they are taking out the money from the Indian market and moving to the US market. And there is also a high current account deficit. This high current account deficit is caused because of various reasons, and one of the main reasons being the high crude oil prices. Because of the conflict and because of the shortage of production, the crude oil prices in the global market, they have been continuously increasing. So when the crude oil prices are increasing, we have to pay more now for the same amount of crude. So we have to convert more from Indian rupees to US dollars, because of which the value of Indian rupees is again falling. And because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the cost of fertilizers, the cost of oil, and the cost of domestic consumption oil, the production of which is very low in the Southeast Asian countries, and the restrictions put by Malaysia, all this is affecting the commodity prices in the global market. And we also know how the logistical cost increased because of the shipping container shortage, which was also discussed in the economic survey. So that is also leading to high outflow of money, high payments, because of which the current account deficit is increasing. And all this is leading to concept of imported inflation. When the cost of the goods that you are importing is itself high, so basically that inflation component, you are getting it into your domestic economy. For example, when you are manufacturing, the input cost of crude oil price itself is high. The cost of that increased crude oil price would be added to the cost of production, because at every point of time we need oil for production, we need oil for logistic transportation. So the basic crude oil increased component of cost would be having an impact on the final cost for the consumer. Similarly, the increased input cost of fertilizers, commodity, and the logistic cost, all this would be added to the final cost of the consumer. That is why it is leading to the higher cost for the end consumer. And what is the likely impact on the economy? If there is weak rupee, because of all these factors, if the rupee is weak, if there is depreciation in the value of the rupee, our imports become costlier, because earlier whatever we are importing, we are paying some X amount of rupees. Now because the value of rupee has depreciated, the value of rupee has fallen as against the dollar. Now we have to pay X plus something more to import the same quantity of goods. So our imports become costlier. And also the higher crude oil prices will lead to the higher cost for the end consumer. And we just discussed about how imported inflation would increase the inflation in the domestic economy. So what would the central banks do at this situation? Every central bank would want to control the volatility of their domestic currency. Now the central bank, if it wants to make the investment opportunity in India lucrative as compared to US. Now because the FPIs are moving out of India, because they are getting higher interest rate in USA, what can the RBI do? The RBI can increase the interest rate. In Indian context, the increase for the interest rates is one of this aspect, and the other aspect being the increasing inflation. So on one side, we have to attract the FPI and FDI. On the other side, we also have to control the domestic inflation. So probably all the central banks of the emerging markets, they are going to increase their interest rate so that the outflow of money from their domestic economy would be curtailed. And if there is high inflation all over the world, and if the interest rates are going to be high all over the world, finally it would lead to global recession in the future, which may not be possible. So there is a chance of global recession in the future if the interest rates all over the world are very high. This was about the impact of rupee and how it would impact the economy, and the what the central banks would do to control the inflation, and finally the possibility of global inflation and global recession. Thank you so much.